Behind every great billionaire is an even greater butler. Bruce certainly wouldn't be able to get much done without his loyal friend by his side, am I right? Alfred does a lot more for the Bat family besides keeping house. Without his loyal guidance, Gotham may never even have had a Batman in the first place. A cog in the crime-fighting machine that is the Bat family, he is key to ensuring that the crime fighters stay safe, have their injuries dealt with, and keep their identities under wraps, all while continuing his day job as Bruce Wayne's most trusted employee and friend. With a legacy nearly as long as Batman's, this refined Englishman has seen his fair share of action, tragedy, and mayhem. Anything we're about to recount, you can be sure the Butler did it. It's Alfred appreciation time as we take a look at some of Mr. Pennyworth's best moments. In a list talking exclusively about Alfred, it would be a crime to leave out his solo debut on screen. Alfred has had a quick run of comics before, being a more fun, lighthearted adventure series. But we never get a full view of his years before Gotham City and the Waynes. This series is noted to have some canon connections to the better-known Gotham series, giving us some insight into how an ex-soldier manages to score a job far overseas working for a billionaire. Along the way, the show manages to give us a better look at Bruce's parents, Thomas and Martha, as their relationship develops as well. As this whole show centers on Alfred, picking a single moment from the series is near impossible. So this entry is more of an honorable mention, as this Alfred is a far cry from the witty father figure we know him for today. With one season of Pennyworth behind us and the newly debuting season 2, there's a lot more in store for this Butler to be. Speaking of Gotham, Alfred Pennyworth has certainly seen his fair share of action on the small screen. With the future vigilante finding himself the target of various criminals, Alfred finds himself thrown into the ring on many occasions, fighting for Master Bruce's safety. As Bruce gets older, Alfred takes on a teaching role to ensure Bruce has a few more skills under his belt when it comes to self-defense. The Gotham series isn't the only instance that Alfred helps with a young Bat's training. The Alfred of Earth 1 manages to knock some sense into his young master, believing that Bruce isn't ready to face the streets of Gotham City. Though Bruce eventually manages to win that fight, Alfred certainly gave him a run for his money. Age equals experience. Take some notes, Bruce. A portrayal that launched 1,000 impressions, Sir Michael Caine, or as some people say it, Sir Michael Caine. Oh man, I'm gonna stop with the impressions now. Has granted us one of the most iconic depictions of the loyal butler. Being a large source of comic relief in the trilogy, he plays off Christian Bale's gloomy knight incredibly.
You could tell me the Russian for apply your own bloody suntan lotion.
Dropping both the words of wisdom and excellent one-liners to bring a bit of light into the gritty Nolanverse. Trying to pick a favorite moment from this expansive series of films is tricky, with each line of the witty butler being extremely quotable. But his actions during the fire at Wayne Manor in Batman Begins is for sure one of his best. His heroic rescue of Bruce Wayne is a real daring move, not necessarily expected from the older gentleman. Alfred literally leaps through fire in order to find the trapped billionaire among the flames. In such a heated situation, he's still able to find a way to both motivate and poke fun at his employer. Without the bravery of his loyal butler, the future of Batman would have gone up in smoke. In a good handful of Alfred origin stories, he has had a background in the theater as an actor. So when he wants to get theatrical, he certainly doesn't pull any punches. This little setup is depicted in The Legends of the Dark Knight Volume 1. Alfred and Bruce have a tense conversation about how everyone is vulnerable, no one is without a weakness. This ends in a bet. The bet is a measly $1, but that doesn't stop Alfred from going a bit overboard. This loyal friend decides to recreate the incident that took Bruce's parents. When Bruce rushes in to save the day, the family he was rescuing attacks him, downing the bat with ease. Alfred then arrives to claim his prize and takes Bruce home. As much as it's nice that Alfred taught Bruce a valuable lesson, maybe he didn't have to pull from such a dark moment in Batman's past? I hope that dollar was worth it. The late Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. was the voice of Alfred in a large portion of the DC animated universe. With his dry tone and sarcastic humor, he was an absolute joy to hear. The animated series grants us a bizarre but ever-endearing scene between Alfred and Bruce. It's hard to catch the Bat off guard, but this silly trick manages it, the Butler presenting his drawn bath to the gloomy vigilante. Bruce simply resorts to using the shower, leaving the Butler disappointed in the joyless billionaire. Alfred succeeds in surprising Bruce, but fails to get even a smile out of the caped crusader. Hard to enjoy April Fools with characters like the Joker running around. Better luck next time, Alfred. You can't mess with the Bat family and expect to get off scot-free. Not even Superman can get away from a little retribution. Injustice Gods Among Us grants us an unusual but certainly not unwelcome matchup. The now corrupt Big Blue Boy Scout facing off against the elderly butler of the Wayne household. Those odds overall don't seem great, but with Bruce lying injured on the floor of the Batcave, Alfred takes it upon himself to defend his home and loved ones against the superhuman. And boy, does he manage. With a little help from a nanotech pill and the element of surprise, Alfred has a clear win over this hero-turned-dictator. Once Superman is dealt with, Alfred goes to get Bruce back on his feet. Not one to bask in his victory, he knows what's important at the moment, helping his family. The English gentleman is certainly one of a kind. The Batcave is full of many trinkets and props that the Bat has collected throughout the years. Not to mention the array of gadgets and vehicles. The giant penny is a real hard landmark to miss. And a real heavy decoration too. Alfred certainly knows the cave like the back of his hand. Makes sense that he would use the home field advantage. One little shove with the help of an axe and the coin drops right on top of the intruder. Don't need superpowers or gadgets to get the job done. Sometimes simple objects, like giant pennies, are just as effective. Guns have always been a big no in Batman's rulebook, but Bruce doesn't seem to have much of a say when it comes to his butler's arsenal. Alfred is a good shot as well, having previous military experience in many of his incarnations over the years. His previous service has certainly come in handy from time to time. A segment in Batman and Robin number 17 gives us a glimpse at the Joker taunting the noble butler, having defeated the caped crusader and his many trainees. Alfred defeats the villain from a distance, quick and accurate. The moment is revealed to have been a dream, but not one that was too unpleasant. Alfred goes back to sleep with a smile on his face. This probably isn't the first time he's imagined hurting clowns and is unlikely to be the last. Seems like Alfred has some very different thoughts than Bruce on his rules. Another great clip provided by the late Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. This moment comes in the closing minutes of Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. With Bruce's longtime love appearing to be dead, the caped crusader is heartbroken at not being able to save her, not being able to stop her quest for vengeance she is lost to him in an explosion. Alfred comforts Bruce, telling him that it wasn't something he could have prevented. Andrea had gone too far in her mission to be able to come back from it. Alfred laments how he has feared he might lose Bruce the same way. This scene shows the fatherly affection Alfred shows to Bruce, how much he cares for him and fears what may happen to him in his crusade against crime. The touching words are different from much of Alfred's usual tone. As much as their banter is ever so entertaining from a comedic standpoint, it's nice to see a much more vulnerable side to these longtime friends. In Neil Gaiman's Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader, we get a look at how far this loyal friend may go to help someone he cares about. Part of this tale is told by Alfred himself, in which he confesses that he may have gone too far in his attempts to make the young billionaire feel fulfilled. In this account, Batman wasn't actually able to apprehend any criminals, and the repeated failures were destroying his sanity. In order to remedy this, Alfred hired many of his old actor friends to become the supervillains that Batman would face, beginning with his friend Eddie Nash. With the Rogues Gallery crafted, Alfred decided that he would be the Moriarty to Batman's Sherlock, taking on the mantle of the Joker. Alfred kept up this charade for a long amount of time, continuing to be his ward's greatest enemy, while also being his closest friend and companion. Alfred comments on his previous occupation as an actor, but trying to picture the composed Butler as the true face behind the Joker is unsettling, to say the least. This tale turns the Batman mythos on its head, making you think about the hero's adventures through an entirely different lens. And that's our list of some of Alfred Pennyworth's greatest hits. Any moments stand out to you? I never tire of hearing the witty banter of any of Alfred's incarnations. Let's hope Andy Serkis can serve up some of that sarcasm. Anything we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, like this video and subscribe to CBR for more comic content. Thanks for watching.